And we are live with episode 180 of the
Whoa.
Start, Build, Grow Show. Randy Brothers, my friend. Usually I come on here, I start the show with, 180 episodes, do a little flex on how many episodes we got. Now we got this guy in the house today with 250, 260 episodes or something like that?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Hey, I got to tell you, I like that tune. You got a great intro. I got to change my intro
like that?
around. That's getting old.
I always find myself kind of jamming, when the screen goes
exactly. Mine's like, I don't know. I got to change it around.
Well, here's the thing. It took us 180, over 3 years of doing this, 180 episodes to finally track down the godfather of roofing podcasting, Dave Sullivan from the Roofer Show. My man, welcome.
How's it going, guys? Hey,
it's been a long time since we connected. I know I had the pleasure of being on your show, like 2 years ago now, and we've always just kind of stayed in contact. But I'm excited. We're going to reverse this up a little bit. Like, you're usually the one doing the interviewing and kind of, asking the questions. We're going to put you on the hot seat. We want to kind of get to know who Dave Sullivan is. What's your background? What's your history? And
it's not that interesting.
Tell us a little something. I'm sure it's exciting
and I like
enough.
That. Did you say grandfather of podcasting? I couldn't really hear that, man.
Oh yeah, I had a little cough. I had a little squeak going on.
Well, great. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's different. First off, I don't do live shows very often because I screw up a lot, and I like to be able to edit things out and so forth. But here we are.
Here we are, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you joining us. So, before we dive into your background, obviously, me and Randy kind of followed in your footsteps with this whole podcasting in the roofing space. You were kind of one of the first people to do that and then stick with it for a long period of time. Like I said, you're in plus 250 episodes, really impressive. Why did you start to do that? Why did you think that was a good idea? Why did you start to podcast?
Well, I had retired from, sold my business, retired a while back. And you can only do so much screwing around. So I wanted to kind of get back into really reconnecting with the industry, some of my old contacts. And I had always listened to a lot of podcasts. And back then, this is going way back, there were no podcasts in the roofing space, but, I'd catch some in the remodel and paving and other niches. And I said, this looks pretty good. Maybe I'll try it. And I expected to do, 5 or 6 episodes. Like most people, the average podcast, it starts with a bang. And then, after 6, 7, they just fizzle out. But I loved it. I just kept doing it. And now, you get going, as you guys know, you can't stop now, right? You got to just keep going and keep that streak up.
I think we booked you like a year ago or something like that.
Yeah. He's a busy man.
Kind of go. We're booked out for months, and you start to get that interest, and people start reaching out, and it just starts to have an impact. That's the objective, right? It's for us. It was, how do we support and serve the industry? How do we have an impact and share what we know and feature? The kind of the premise of why we started this thing was sharing the entrepreneurial journey in the roofing space. So whether you're a roofer just getting started, or a roofer that's been doing it a while, or a retired roofer, or you're in the software space, or you're a subsidiary or a company that supports the roofing industry, we wanted to bring those guests on and share that journey of what it's like to to start, build, and grow companies, not just roofing companies, but companies, with obviously an emphasis on this space in particular. So now we got you on the hot seat. Let's go. What's your background? Like, how'd you, let's go back to, just after ice was created and sand and dirt was made.
I was going to say, So I arrived on this horse and buggy and covered wagon here. Well, I'm out here in California, out in outside San Francisco, and my father had a small roofing business, and so my plan was to just really get into business with him and start going. I went to school out here, and when I got out of college, he had a heart attack, and it's kind of like, whoops, okay, I got to step in. I had no idea what I was doing, and business school is one thing, but when you're out there every day, I had some real problems getting going, and it was a struggle because the guys, they didn't have any respect for me, and here's this young kid coming in, and it was tough, real tough. And so just started off building that, trying to find my way, and got things up and going, and did it for 30 years. It's awesome. Love this industry and fantastic opportunities. So did that, retired, 8 years ago or so, and just doing this and having opportunities to chat with you guys, and that's great.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody that I talk to in the industry loves you, right? They're listening to your podcast. They're doing the coaching, consulting with you. Everybody loves you. So, but when we're going into, you were specifically commercial roofing, correct?
Yeah, well, we started off, it's an interesting story, and that's where I like to start. And I'm sure, Randy, you'd run into this, but, we did everything, we started off with we're doing residential, we're doing commercial, do dog houses, whatever, anything that came along. And that's, not a great idea for the most part, and that's where we changed out and really focused on commercial.
Well, I think, and there's so many different. I'm learning this more and more, right? As you start to coach and work with companies all across the country, and it just seems like California is like it's a completely different world in roofing, specifically from the rest of the world.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense. It's just like,
sure,
it's just so much population, so much buildings, but there's no real storm activity. So it's all retail. It's all ground up. Everyone's got to be employees. Like it's a different model than some of the hacks that we're able to do over here on the western side of the country, where we could sub everything out, 1099 everybody, knock a bunch of doors and make some money.
Exactly.
Like it's a completely different world.
Totally. And that's one of the first, it was, I had no idea, because we don't have storms out here. We got fires, earthquakes, but no storms. And really where I started getting into some guests, we were talking, you were one of my first guests on here, and talking about the storm business. I had no idea how big this industry was, but you're right. Everything here, it's obviously all retail. There are no subs out here. You're working with W-2 employees, and you build your team, you build an organization. And it's just totally different from really most of the rest of the country, because the guys that I work with, they're in a storm business, storm restoration, and so forth. And it's different. The idea of door knocking, you knock on somebody's door in this neighborhood, they'll sick the dogs on you. Nobody comes to the door. You would never have that. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot different, but I've learned a lot. And a lot of the guests that I have on here, on my show, are people that are in the storm business, that have a lot of experience, because I want to learn about it. And that's part of why I do the show.
So yeah. we both know Jason Dixon. He just commented on here. Come to Oklahoma this spring, and I will show you what hailstorms look like, Dave. He'll teach you a thing or two. He's gonna switch the roles on you.
Nice. That's who I was talking with yesterday. Was Jason.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's doing some awesome stuff out there. So you mentioned that you were in business for over 30 years, right? 3 decades. What was the success, would you say, for the longevity to be able to last that long as a business?
Well, I'll start off with really where we came from, where I talk about everybody, we're doing everything. And really what I see so often is, you've got contractors that are doing, windows, siding, basements, roofing, everything. And so what I did in my business was, I hired a business coach. It was the smartest thing that I ever did, brought a consultant in, and he really broke those profit centers out. And we looked at each one of those, residential and commercial in our case, and turned out, we were doing about 50-50 split in sales, but it turned out we were losing money in the residential. I didn't know it. And our commercial was where we were making our money, and the residential was just bringing us down. I mean, we just weren't very good at it, and didn't really have it set up. So we moved out of the residential and focused 100% on commercial. And we really refined that down to all we did was re-roofing and service work. So we didn't work for generals. We didn't work for property flippers. We wanted to work for investors and go out and sell our work for, higher margins. And that's really what we focused on. And really, the last 20 years, really got that clear, and getting a clear focus, and not trying to be everything to everybody. And I think that's really the key. Riches are in the niches, right? So if you niche down and stay focused on who that ideal customer is, what you do well, and be clear on that. Nick, you were on the show. We talked about that, and particularly when it comes to marketing, you've got to really identify who that, one client is, that avatar that you want to do business with. And it starts with that.
Yeah. I think a lot of struggle with that, though, giving up those certain opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Randy. What tips do you have for guys? Because I know you agree with the same mindset as Dave.
Absolutely. I run into that all the time. It's one of the first things we're going to do is look at your business and look at all the verticals within your business. And me too, right? Started a roofing company, and I'm like, okay, I'll take anything.
Yeah.
Anybody that was willing to hire me to do anything, I'll do it. I'll build you a new birdhouse if you want, we were doing, siding, gutters, windows, painting, fences, decks, whatever we can get our hands on, we would try to do. And I think a lot of people do that because they have this mindset of any revenue is good revenue, right? It's not naivety in starting a business. And then we got to a point where we really started to analyze that and look at each one of those as individual businesses, we quickly realized that, one, you can't be really, really, really good at one thing if you're trying to be marginally average or below average at a bunch of things. Plus, how do you become super profitable in one area when the other areas are taking up your time and energy? So I had to make a conscious decision to just say we're only doing roofing. And we were able to kind of work that we do roofing and gutters. That's it. And I had some backlash. I had people wanting to quit. I probably lost a couple of salespeople like, I'd rather go and sell everything. Next thing you know, we tripled our business the next year.
Right.
Because we were honed our skills on just roofing. And that's all we were going to do is roofing. And at that time we switched and we were just doing residential roofing. And then we added a service department. Then we added a commercial department, but it was very strategic how we added those things because we wanted to kind of master the bread and butter niche first, and then started branching out. And then we could focus on those things once we had more infrastructure and leadership team in place. So my advice out there is to look at your business and actually ask yourself the question, what can you get rid of? Okay. What's taking up your time and killing your profit? If there's something in there that stands out, we got to get rid of that in your business and focus on what you're good at and what's profitable, and be really, really good at that before you look into other verticals.
I totally agree. And you really got to dig down, and you got to understand, where you said, where you're spending your time. And I'll talk with contractors that are doing whatever it is, and maybe it's 20% of the revenue. And I said, well, how much time you spend in there? Well, we keep screwing up. So probably half my day is dealing with angry customers and this and that. We're not very good at it. I say, well, let's just move that off. Let's focus on what we do well and what we do profitably. Where can we make our margins? Because, I'm a big believer of it's just all in the margins, man. It's not the top line. And you've got to have a certain amount of volume, but you've got to really focus on that profitability.
And I feel like you usually know what services to ditch because those projects usually give you headaches. But don't only know your numbers as a whole business, but profitability per service. One thing that I hear a lot though is, especially in the store market per se, is they're like, hey, the customer wants me to replace everything, the windows, the siding, everything. Otherwise, I'm going to lose that job. I can't lose that job. What's the response to that?
Yeah, I hear that all the time. And then that's why it's difficult to get contractors to really move away from that. I mean, you're not everything, what are you going to do? Go paint their house while you're there too? I want you to do this. And hey, can you resurface our swimming pool? It doesnn fit in, and that's what happens. They start and that's how contractors start getting away, because the customer wants them to do that. Sure, I'll build your deck. Now we're in the deck business and we don't make any money on it. Focus on what you do well. I mean, and go after that. If you're clear, if you have clarity on who that customer is, go focus on those guys, because there's a lot of them out there. And when you become the expert in that one area, and this is something that, Randy, I'm sure you see, when you look at somebody's website, contractor website, and it's all over. I mean, they're doing all, you can't really figure out, get the 5-second rule. You have 5 seconds to see if you're in the right spot. And I can't tell what these guys do. They're all over the place. So I believe in, you want to be known as, the big tagline, we are the experts in this. This is what we do. And, I think you focus down on that.
Yeah. Well, I think, and here's the harsh reality. Okay. Roofing. Let's keep this specific to roofing. It's a very low barrier to entry. Okay. A lot of people either get thrust into owning a roofing company for various reasons, and very few of us are true entrepreneurs or business owners at heart. And what I mean by that is, a true entrepreneur at heart has a natural ability to, and a natural, ability to like have an aversion to risk. Right. So a lot of us get into this business based off whatever reason, whatever we know, and we're not very willing to take risks. We operate off of fear quite a bit. A lot of us get in the business based off of fear. So that sort of a decision is a high risk, high fear. It's going to stimulate a lot of fear in us. And so we don't want to do that, because we're like, oh my gosh, I can't lose any business. If I lose any business, I lose all my business.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
1,
the fear.
inexperience. 2, fear. 3, and just aversion to risk. We have to get through those. We got to get past that. We got to work our way past that in order to reach our full potential as an entrepreneur. Because here's the reality of it. You can ask any person, let's keep it to roofing. 80-90% of roofing contractors never make it past what, $1-2 million. Go to the ones that are 5, 10, 15, $20 million companies and ask the owner, the visionary of that company, how much risk did they take to get to that level. It's a entirely different conversation than somebody operating at like a $1-2 million that just can't break through that, because they're operating out of fear and not from a place of willing to take risk and or faith, which I like to, I have this, one of my personal guiding principles is faith over fear, right? To get past it, you got to be able to take those risks in order to reach your full potential. You might not win all the time, but you're also not going to do much if you can't take those risks. You're not going to get past, those thresholds if you don't.
100%. Well, so we already talked about, being an expert, focusing on one thing, be the best at that, right? Whatever you're really, really profitable at. For Dave's scenario, it was commercial roofing, right? Replacements, service, right? So I'm going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors. Then we can kind of talk about some other aspects of building a profitable commercial department, right? So we can talk about marketing, knowing the numbers. I want to talk about service. You mentioned service. I love that. And we can also talk a little bit about the material shortage and how everybody's handling that, because that's a fun one for sure. But we're going to start with our headline sponsors, Job Nimbus.
Job Nimbus is a fully customizable back office solution.
Track leads, jobs, tasks from one easy-to-use software.
And with the largest ecosystem of integrated partners, if we don't do it, we have a friend who does.
Learn how the #1 back office system in roofing
can help you be efficient, be organized, be professional, and be profitable.
So if you guys somehow have not checked out Job Nimbus, make sure you do so. Go to info.jobnimbus.com/roofing-academy. Now, we love efficiency. We love, great user experience, customer experience, everything like that. One of the coolest tools out there that integrates with Job Nimbus is going to be Sumo Quote.
Are you looking to stand out with your proposal? Sumo Quote is the contractor quote that crushes the competition. It is the fastest way to build custom quotes that impresses clients and wins more work. It's one of those must-have technologies for roofing contractors, allowing them to sell faster, sell more, and sell smarter. Be sure to check them out at try.sumoquote.com/start-build-grow.
So make sure you guys are checking out Sumo Quote. And last but not least is a guy that's actually listening to the show right now, Tim Brown with Hook Agency, who's got one of the cooler commercials yet. So make sure you check this one out.
Is it time to turn the heat up on your marketing?
Our website's now been live for 4 months. We did just under $100,000 of leads coming out of organic SEO.
So make sure you're checking them out, right? So it's time to put your marketing on fire. Check out hookagency.com. I'm also very curious where he got that flamethrower. So that is pretty cool stuff.
I can't wait. I was going to say the same thing. Like I saw his Facebook post about that, or like his story. Like he's out there with an actual flamethrower. I'm like,
he almost burned his phone
cool.
or his camera or whatever. I think he thought he started his camera on fire. So that was pretty funny as well. So you got
to legal.
Yeah, right. So you gotta love that, man. But all right. So back to it though, right? Building a profitable commercial department. One of my favorite things doing so is building out a service department. So Dave, let's say that I don't have a service department right now. Right now, I'm just doing some replacements and doing a little bit of repairs, but I really want to focus on growing that aspect of my business. What does that look like? What are the benefits of doing so?
Hey, before we jump into that, I got to say, you guys got it all. All these. I got to get some sponsors. I got to get the professional look in place. I mean, look at this. I'm sitting here in a bedroom at my house. I mean, I got to up my game.
Hey, you got the swag though. You got the swag. So we're just trying to keep up.
Yeah, man.
Oh man,
we got to have all the bells and whistles to keep up with the Godfather.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez. I'm going to be on Tim's show next week. Speaking of doing some live shows, he's a great guy. So,
yeah, he is.
Well, let's talk service. And service department the margins are fantastic. And if I could do just do service, I'd love it. And companies that don't have a service, I mean, it's difficult to get going. And what's tough is to really start it. And like we're talking about in the various profit centers, whether it's residential and commercial, you really need to break this off, the service department, because you've got to have different guys doing it. So it's an entirely different type of business, particularly when it comes to sales. You can't have your guys that are big producers selling commercial work because they don't want to mess with the service end of it. So you really need to separate that as a separate profit center. Have and that's the difficult part, is getting to that point, because if you're going back and forth, you're pulling guys off the roof, try to go out and do service, you really don't have your rhythm going. Mm-hmm. So I really recommend that you break that off, you keep that separate, and run it with different people. It's almost like a different company. And that's, I think, where the success comes from. But if you do that, it's, and this is service. We're not just going out and slapping, wet patch on a roof here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Dumping a bucket of
Yeah,
on a leak.
exactly. So there's a strategy involved with it, and you've got to think it through, and it can be tough, but I mean, the rewards are totally there.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to get like some key accounts that had multiple buildings that you were constantly servicing, or what did that kind of look like?
Well, that's what our focus on our we look at, our ideal customer. It's an investor, and we had a lot of accounts there were families that had a lot of buildings in their portfolio. And when you've got somebody like that, and you can build that relationship, we would always be involved with the service end, because they'd have roofs 15 years old, 10 years old, and you could get them on a service program and then get that re-roof finally budgeted, or try to keep them from having a re-roof, because, coating work. And out here, as you say, it's a different world. It's all built up cap sheet roofs. I mean, plywood decks, tilt ups. There's a lot of it out here, and it's just a great opportunity for retrofitting and coating work, so forth, was really big. And the margins are fantastic. So may not be, the big volume in it, but man,
here's the thing. I think to break into that, and that's how I kind of looked at it early on. Like, I mean, I had a service. I mean, I don't want to call it a department, but within 3-4 months of starting my company, we hired a service technician, and we wanted somebody that could be very versatile, that can help us, run materials if needed. They can go identify and fix leaks. They can, help do random things, running around and just supporting production at first. But when I looked at it, I was like, all we have to do is a handful of jobs, service jobs, and have them do warranty work and other things, and they'll pay for themselves. Right. So that's how I looked at it. I was like, okay, pretty minimum, buy a truck. For me, I bought like a very cheap hail damaged truck. I got it off for pennies on the dollar. We kept that thing. We drove that thing in the ground. And that was the beginning of it early on. I just knew I needed an expert. I talk about 5 pillars. You got to have somebody that's a resident expert, and you can start with service to have that person. Like, this is that person that when you get in trouble, when you need somebody to be on a job site to troubleshoot and to find a leak or to solve a problem, you want to have that person on your team. And instead of trying to find that person or call up crews, see if they're available, or do it yourself, depending on how you got into the business. So early on, it was just a kind of a flex player, if you will. And then as we evolved, you kind of build it into a department where you start to, and again, same thing you mentioned, regular salesperson should not be selling service. Like, your service, you can have dedicated service salespeople, and the commercial sales team can also sell service, but they got to be committed to it as well.
Why do you need dedicated sales people for service?
Well, first and foremost, a person selling service has to identify a problem, identify a leak, come up with the materials to fix it, come up with a solution, also know how much time it's going to take, and have an accurate quote, an accurate bid. Trying to teach a door-to-door salesperson how to do all that and or make it worth their while is a really difficult task.
Yeah. That's the tough part, because, as I say, you've got your producers that are out selling commercial work, and that's the mindset. And then when they have to go do a small, provide us a real service, they can't make any money doing that. So you have to have a different structure. And that's why you have somebody that's trained. And the idea of service is service. It's not just going, as I say, it's just not going out and fixing leaks. You're looking for the long term, putting reports together. You've got to have the right guy to do that. And the tough part comes from, as you said, Randy, the guy that's going to do the work, it's got to be, know what he's doing, right? He's got to be able to find leaks. It's not easy to do. He's got to be able to communicate with the tenants or the customers, because they're going to be the guy that's there. They're going to be the one that's going to have to explain things. So that's difficult. You want somebody that can sell, because you want to get on that roof. That's the number one goal. And great thing is get on the roof, because you're always going to find things that need to be done. And this is what we want to do. We're going to bring your roof up to a serviceable condition. And once we're at that point, then you can continue just regular maintenance. But until you do that, and that can be a lot of work. And so you want somebody that can spot that, the idea that, they're whether you get into giving them an incentive to do that, to upsell or what have you. It's a tough position to fill. I mean, you just don't go down to the roofer store and pick one of these guys up, right? So you got to develop them, find them, and that's the hard part about setting up a service department, is really kind of getting started with that, because you've got to commit where you've got to keep this guy busy all the time, so he's going to be full time, and you're not going to have that consistent service work when you're getting started. So it's a big investment.
Yeah.
So when there's a repair, so if someone calls and say, hey, there's a leak, that's when the service salesperson would go out. And then what situation does the commercial salesperson, is they just responsible for the most part of just generating their own opportunities, or how do you guys view those two different situations of who goes out?
Yeah, we had a pretty high lead flow coming in from various sources. So we really, kept these guys busy. We fed them. And they had their clientele, it's multiple building owners, and they develop accounts, and the guys had been with me for quite a while, which is a blessing and a curse. You get these guys, it's like going, these guys are spoiled rotten.
Oh yeah. When they're getting fed leads.
But so it was, it's just different. I want them out in front of prospects, out in front of customers, and that, developing these relationships. And the service end, it's just kind of a different deal. My focus really was in trying to increase the percentage of service in the entire business. So we would get to maybe started off at 15% service to re-roofing, because that's all we did. And we try to bring that up and really improve that service department, because, as I say, you can, you start seeing the margins really going up with the company as a whole. So, the margins are great, and you need to charge a lot of money. You should, because
it's a specialty. I mean,
it really
is a
is
highly specialized thing that you're doing. Is identifying and fixing leaks, And to go back to your question earlier, Nick, on the process, we kind of have two different processes for service, if you will. So one, commercial sales reps are always dedicated to building relationships and getting in front of people, property managers and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
And they're going to, by default, as those relationships continue to get built, they're going to be the point of communication. And oftentimes they're going to be the first person out on the job site. So they should know enough to core a roof, to be able to identify leaks, to be able to identify, how to, to fix a job, to have a good sense of that. But if a cold lead comes directly to the office, depending on whether it's a potential client that's a long-term situation, then we'll assign it over to one of them to nurture that relationship. If not, we want to respond quickly, because that also nurtures a relationship. So we want to also be very responsive and send a tech out same day or the next day to go look at everything. And it just, we kind of play it by ear based on where the lead comes from and the customer's profile. That'll determine whether we just send a tech directly, just immediately send a tech with a truck to see what's going on. If they can fix it and quote it right then and there, great. Our service techs are trained to do their own quoting. And sometimes if they're real busy, they can just gather the data, send it back to the home office, and then the service manager can actually type up the nice quote and then send it off to get assigned get signed like right then and there. So there's a couple different ways to do that, but speed, communication, relationship, all those things are vitally important.
Exactly. And having that speed, and this is, I'm dealing with a couple of contractors now that want to everybody wants to get into commercial, it's like,
oh yeah,
hey, it's not necessarily any better. Do what you do well, because you can make good money doing whatever it is. There's guys that work for general contractors only, and they do great. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, but you've got to be able to respond quickly, and they don't, like we were talking about, they subcontract all their work. Well, you can't have a leak in a roof and then try to find your subcontractor to go out and take care of it, because service means service. You got to be able to respond quickly, and that's what they want to see, because generally they have a tenant, let's say, that's called them and said, my roof's leaking, I'm getting damage here. They're going to call us, and that's where we need to respond. And like you say, Randy, even if, sometimes we'll even if we can just get somebody out there to show up and show that, because we're representing the owner of the building, we want to make sure that they look good, where they're taking care of business. We get somebody out there immediately, and that's what it's about.
I mean, I always looked at service and repair, and you guys can let me know, as an open door, right, to build that relationship and show what you're able to do. So when you get those opportunities to maximize those relationships, is it really just, hey, showing up quick, efficient, right, and doing as you promise? Basically, is it pretty much that simple? Or is there any other tips to maximize those opportunities with those key decision makers?
Well, a lot of it is just showing up and being there.
That's what it seems like.
Answering the phone.
Answering the phone, yeah.
That's number one. I mean, if you answer the phone and show up to an appointment, I mean, you just eliminated 70% of your competition, right? So, and so you've got to be able to respond quickly and really show them that you're going to provide service. And every property manager has a roofer right now. Okay. You're not going to find people that, if they're of any size, that say, oh, kind of been, so you need to be there, keep making those touches, being ready to go, because 9 times out of 10, that guy's going to screw up. Right. So if you're sitting there ready to go, and you can show that you're, going to take care of business, that's where a lot of our business came from. Just being there, being ready to go, and being consistent, and let them know that we're there, and say, hey, if you need a second quote or something, give us an opportunity. And but that's where a lot of it comes from. You're not going to go out and knock on doors and just expect somebody to give you work as a commercial contractor.
Well, and so many people think that, I'll just take the same thing I do in residential and go knock on some property manager doors, and they're just going to hand me $1 million job.
That sounds nice.
That way. You got to show up multiple times before you ever even get a chance to do a $1,000 repair. Then you do that repair, then you follow up, then you continue, you just stay the course and keep going. And it was interesting because I just had my meeting. I oversee the commercial team within my own company, and we just had our meeting this morning, and it was talking about, we were just going through our leads, and we got in the pipeline already for the year and that sort of thing. And it was really cool because my guys were like, the majority of my calls have been relationships that I've been cultivating for the last year. And they're just now starting to come to fruition, and they're calling me because we just had a big snow, right? So it snows and it's cold for a few days, and all of a sudden the snow starts melting, and then you get leaks, and everybody starts calling you. In California, it rains once a year, and one rain, your phone blows up for 3 months, right? It's same here with the snow. So it melts, and now everybody's like, oh, I got a leak, I got this, I need to get my roof fixed. And it's all, there's some organic traffic with marketing and whatever else, but with commercial, it's so relationship based driven, and you got to put in the time and effort to get to that point. And people are we're so conditioned for this quick hit, get it done,
Right.
go knock a door in 15 minutes, sign a contract. Like it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
You're totally right. I mean, it's a different business, and so many contractors just think they're going to, I'm going to decide to get in the commercial. Well, it's a different market. You're selling a different product. It's a different mindset. You can't just take, after, as you say, the one transaction homeowner and just slide into commercial, nor do you necessarily want to. I mean, you better have a good reason for doing it. Just because the jobs are bigger, everybody thinks, doesn't mean it's more profitable for you, and you got to have a strategy to do that. It's not easy. It's difficult. You're starting a new business in a new market. It's totally different. Don't you think, Randy?
Oh, 100%. And I'm in the middle of that. I mean, we've been making a transition, and it's a hot button, right? There are a lot of people like, Coach, I want to get into commercial, going into commercial. I'm good friends with Paul Reed over at the Commercial Roofing Academy. And there's this whole buzz about, hey, I want to get into commercial. But one of the first things that he teaches and I teach is like, understand what you're actually getting yourself into. What they're not, what people won't realize or admit is like, the amount of mistakes and the amount of losses that even I had trying to build a commercial team and a commercial department for my business, and then trying to position yourself in you're a 1-2-year-old company, you're going to become this commercial guru. And all of a sudden, when you look around your market, there's companies that have been around for 30, 40 years that have these relationships that are 30 years old, and you're trying to compete with them. Good luck. Like, you could spend a lot of time, energy on that, and you're going to miss the opportunity right in front of you just because you're chasing that shiny object. It's not, it's not just better because someone on a podcast said you should go to commercial roofing, right? You have to really understand the ins and outs and the dynamic and what that long game is with the commercial roofing, right? And for me, I'm in the thick of that, and in our market, I'm not, as an entrepreneur, I do not want to be in a position that I hang my hat on storms. And I just don't want, we're in a hybrid market that's like some retail, some storm, and it's been really storm heavy, then it's been not storm heavy. And it's like a really weird market. And I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur, and I can't be in a position where all my eggs are on that storm basket. So for me, retail, commercial, service, that's it. The purpose behind why I switched and why I put a lot of energy there. It's because if you get no storms, I don't want to be a statistic. I want to still have a business that can grow, that can thrive, that can provide for people and jobs and take care of my community.
Yeah, I'm Randy. I know that we had that conversation when you were on my show, because I'm trying to figure out this storm business, and the problem is that you're sitting back waiting for something to happen. You're going to react to it, is the way I see it, as opposed to being proactive. I want to be able to go out there and get that business. And that's what retail is all about. We're not standing around waiting. And if you don't get that storm, where you're SOL, I mean, that's a real problem. But back to, we started our conversation talking about this residential versus commercial and how difficult it is. And, I just want to add that, you're going to start this commercial business. Well, you're also, sucking your energies away from, your bread and butter. This is your core business. And to get this started up, you're diluting your amount of time and effort, finances to, do what you do well, man. It's the golden goose, perhaps. So be careful what you wish for. You may not want to just jump into this, and just because you're talking about, higher volume jobs, larger jobs, it doesn't mean that you're going to be more profitable doing it, because you can, we both know these companies that have scaled, became big, and, commercial work, and they're gone. It's not necessarily the answer. So
be ready.
Think it through.
Be ready. be ready for the process of building out the commercial department or division in terms of finances, time, the mistakes you're going to have along the way, right? And then understanding that B2B high level sales environment, right? That's going to be really relationship based, and compared to that residential, very transactional, knock on the door that day, close that deal, build it in 1 to 2 days, right? Different environment. One thing I wanted to talk about too was I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on the material shortage. Obviously, I just wanted to talk about it quick. What do you guys think of this whole situation, and what are some good ways to kind of do your best around that?
Randy, take this
yeah,
one.
who wants this one?
Because you have that one answer, right? Well,
yeah,
that's the other thing.
This is the toughest one yet.
I'm glad I'm not going through it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly.
Nurture your dang relationships with your suppliers and manufacturers.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's going to come down to, who takes care of who. And this is the reality of it. Like, I don't want to blast nobody here, but, if you're a roofer that does one commercial job a year and you go to 5 and you shop 5 different suppliers to pin them against each other to try to get that best deal, and then you have another job come up, good luck. You're going to go to the bottom of the totem pole. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a relationship with your vendor, your supplier, and you're giving them all your work, and you have a great relationship with them, and they're going to have a tendency to kind of support you first. Also, you do want to expand on, as much as I'd like to just be like, hey, as one guy, this is my supplier. You're going to want multiple relationships. And we've had to deal with this even last year, but you're piecing jobs together from different suppliers. And if you do have large projects, especially on low slope, you've got to make sure your client understands the possibility that they may have to wait. There may be delays. Don't overpromise and underdeliver from a sales perspective, because that's also going to make you look bad. And at the end of the day, just go to work, right? And when it comes up, you cross that bridge when it comes up, but have alternatives. Look into coatings, look into alternative, solutions, look into temporary fixes to where you can buy yourself some time to do the job later. There's a lot of different things you can do, but sitting around, being paralysis by analysis and not doing anything because you're afraid of it, that it's not going to get anybody anywhere. So I believe that it's a little bit overinflated. I think a lot of people put in a lot of orders and they're all back ordered and they're coming, but like there's a lot of duplicate orders. So once one gets released, 5 others go away. So then the next person in line can get their order. Like, they may be saying 6, 7, 8, 9, I've heard next year, but then you put the order in, they're like, okay, I'll figure it out and get it to you in a month or a few weeks. So I don't know. I kind of went all over the place there, but there's a few different ideas and strategies to work through to prep for that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is, which is true, and everything in our business is relationships, and building those relationships. You should look at these as partners, because they're going to help you. They're the guys that can help you. You run into cash problems, have trouble with that. You can ask them for help. They're going to, and it's a partnership, and it's gotta be. And then also you better have your contract together where you've got a price escalation clause, because there's a lot of,
how many times did it go up this last year?
A lot of problems.
We're now having to tell people that there's a price escalation possibility when the job, like when
it's going on.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that part's crazy. I'll tell you.
Are you leveraging that all in the sales process, Randy?
Yeah, you're trying to get a sense of urgency, like sign this now, let's go, so I can lock this price in, because it could change next week. So yeah,
exactly.
And you guys like the coatings as well? Dave, you mentioned the coatings. I've heard some different things both ways. You guys like the coatings?
I love them. I mean, out here in California, it's there's tremendous opportunity there. And what I like about it is that, you don't have that huge capital expenditure of getting all the trucks and all your tear off equipment, all the people. You're able to run a coatings operation, with minimal investment. You don't need a ton of guys. It's not as, let's say, I wouldn't say not as skilled, but it's easier to find people to do your coding, I think.
We're capable of doing
You
it.
can train. There's every check my email every week. There's a new coding training, and we got to have alternatives. I'm a fan too. I mean, I have clients that we go back and forth on it, but I think coding is here. It's going to be here. You can do a great system. It's economic. You're not putting excess materials in dumps. You can get nice 10-year warranties that just renew with a thin coat over the top 10 years down the road. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to coatings if you do them right. With all of it, there's risks. We've tried different coding applications, and some of them failed, and we have issues with them. But find a good product with a good reputation, good relationship, and stand behind it, and you can be effective and profitable with coatings for sure.
I wanted to, this is a little bit different of a question, but what do you guys think of
close this window? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good, man. Go for it. What do you guys think of?
I don't know if you can hear this. It's like a construction zone here.
Seems like it in the Bay Area. But what do you guys think of these green roofs? You guys have any thoughts on the direction of that stuff? Because I was at a conference pretty recently, and they were talking a lot about it. Nothing. Whatever.
We'll cross that bridge when we get
Once
to it. I know
there.
Denver's been working hard with his green roof initiative on new. A lot of it applies to new construction, and I don't mess around too much.
You don't mess with that.
World. I prefer re-roofs, coatings. White roofs fine, but actually putting like gardens on roofs, I'm not.
It looks pretty wild.
That's going to be something I put a lot of energy into.
Yeah. Something I talk about on my show is that one of my goals was travel and being able to take time away from my business without having everything fall apart. And I would every year I'd go over to Germany, and they would have the Dachenwand, which is the roof and wall exhibition. And great way to travel, take one of my kids each year, we go over there. But point being is that you can go back 25 years, and this is really where the green roof was coming from. This you're seeing this and going, what is this? But Randy, you're right. I mean, it costs a fortune to do it. So who's going to be doing it? Public Works. Okay, that's number one. You're going to see a lot of that because the government's going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it.
We're going to pay for it.
And some, really high end new construction. That's where you see it. So it's, when people, they talk about it, but when you get the cost of these things, it's astronomical, you just can't afford it. That's why you don't see much of it around here.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so Dave, it's been a pleasure. We always close this thing out with a golden nugget, and make sure that Randy goes first. Something you want to leave the viewers with. It could be insight, it could be any kind of advice, a quote, for whatever I care. It doesn't matter. Something to leave the guests with. But Randy, for the 180th time, what's that golden nugget?
I'm going to circle back to we touched on this a couple times throughout the show, and I think it has to do with discipline and consistency. Small things, small tasks, small things like done consistently over time. That's what leads to big results. That's what leads to growth and sustainability in your business. So whether it's service, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, be consistent, show up, do the work day in and day out, and focus on the small tasks, do them really well, and you're going to start to see, bigger results come to fruition for you.
I love it.
Agree with
Dave.
That. I think having clarity is, I always talk about starting at the end. Where do you want, what do you want your roofing company to do for you? Because that's what it should do. And the opportunities are tremendous. And then we can come back, build a roadmap to get you there. But, and it doesn't have to be, I want to be the biggest guy in town. I've got a number of clients that just, they want to be home. They want to have that time because they got little kids. And that was for me. My goal was, we weren't all of that big of a relative business, But for me, the important thing was to be able to spend time with my family, watch my kids grow up. And as I say, being able to travel and know that my business was still running when I was away. And just having that focus and, if you want to be the biggest guy in town, great. Then that's the goal. We can get you there, but do it for the right reasons. Everybody doesn't have to be to scale, because that's all we hear about, on all the podcasts. It's just, 10x your business and this and that. And it's like, if you're doing $2 million a year and you're not making money at 2 million and you want to go to 5, you're sure as hell not going to make money at 5. You're just going to go out of business faster. This is not a volume sensitive business. It's a margin sensitive business. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing that I can leave our audience with, it's that. It's about profitability, and it's just, they don't have a top 100, profitable companies. They've got, it's just that top line,
reported top line.
Yeah. And as they say, hey, volume kills and profit thrills, so.
Absolutely. Well, hey, to the Godfather, thank you for joining us on episode 180.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you.
Take care, everybody.